this is from the Weekend Show, and a lot of you don't see these clips from a show called The Weekend on MSNBC because it's a pretty terrible show. It's with this guy, Republican Michael Steele, and then it has Simone Sanders Townsend. It's pretty terrible, but this is a segment where they're talking about double haters, but this is also showing the desperation because you can hear it in the segment. You can hear it in their voices. I thought this was funny. So let's see if you guys also think that this is funny, the way that they're reacting. Let me make sure I get the right thing up here. We can start with this one. That's fine. Corporate media desperation over Biden on full display. So let's do the setup of why there needs to be a scapegoat. So let's start here.
Say they'll never cast a ballot for him again. The group, Republican Voters Against Trump, is collecting their stories as part of a $50 million ad buy to keep him out of the Oval Office.
I am a conservative Republican, but I cannot stand the lying, the cheating, the illegal activities that Trump has perpetuated.
Basically, Trump lost, and he is a poor loser.
I was a Haley supporter, but now I'm going to vote for Biden. There are key issues such as democracy that are bigger than any one candidate or any one policy disagreement.
I know that democracy will be saved under Biden, and we can start the Republican Party anew once the era of Trump is over.
Former Republican Congressman and MSNBC political analyst David Jolly and Washington Post opinion editor and MSNBC political analyst Alexi McCammon join us now. Welcome to you. I
forgot about her.
Hello. It is so nice to see you guys. Talk to me, David, about these messengers, right? Because you have former Vice President Mike Pence saying he's not going to vote for Donald Trump, not going so far as to say he will endorse President Biden. We could talk about that. But then to have these everyday Americans also saying, I voted for him. I get it. I'm one of you, but I'm not going to do it again. If you had to weight those, who carries more weight?
So we're in the world of permission structure now. And I think the most relatable voices are the voices you just saw. And what is different about those voices is the willingness to say, so therefore I will vote for Joe Biden, because that is absolutely what's missing from elected Republican leaders. And honestly, we're 8 years into this. There is no learning curve. If you're not willing to say, so then the answer is Joe Biden, then that's just not good enough. And
if you're not willing to say, then the answer is Joe Biden. Now, you might be saying, oh, you're speaking to the vote blue, no matter who crowd the cowbell left as do this and this. No, he's saying Republicans. You need to finish the sentence by saying, and you must support Joe Biden. Now, he's a Republican. A lot of people would call him a rhino in the conservative movement. They would call him a rhino. Even when he was still in office, he wasn't, he was like considered like a rhino type or, a Mitt Romney sort of type. So let's continue, though, so we can get through some of this.
Look, if your resistance to Donald Trump is on tax policy, I get it. Okay, you're not going to vote for Joe Biden. But if you're suggesting that he is a threat to democracy, that he is unfit for office, that he is dangerous, then the only answer is to also say, so therefore vote for Joe Biden, because otherwise you.
So if you're down for tax policy, it's okay for you not to say vote for Joe Biden. So if you want to save money on taxes, that's okay, though, guys. Isn't that what he said? Isn't he saying taxes? I get it. But if you want to save democracy, so what are you saying is important? Let's continue.
As you risk voters staying home or voters flirting with a third-party candidate, which could very well hurt Joe Biden.
Michael Steele, yesterday you said much the same, and you said you were greedy, that you wanted to see Mike Pence not just come out against Donald Trump, but you wanted the Biden endorsement too. Well, our friend David Jolly, equally greedy.
No, David and I are simpatico.
I mean, this is pretty sad because the segment is, or the critique is, Pence came out So it's not good enough for these people now that Pence came out and says, I will not be endorsing Donald Trump. And all over the news, all the liberal media, CNN, what he's not. Look at this. Look at this. Look, as if this is a big deal. You mean the guy getting 3% in the polls has something to say? Like nothing Mike Pence has to say has any relevance or is it any resonance in the conservative MAGA movement, whichever, if you look at them separately or together. So what he has to say is completely immaterial, is irrelevant here. Let's continue.
So as usual, because that's my boy. But the reality, the reality of it is very much that. I love the clip, that sound bite where the young man says, "Now I'm voting for Biden," and that's the key thing, Alexi. I believe in this election, we saw in 2016, Trump voters come out against him in 2020, right? So since that time, what happened? He got more votes, right, that year in 2020. So are you seeing from your reporting any signs that this, what we saw captured in this video is actually going to make this time different with voters?
I mean, obviously, it remains to be seen. And this election is much more like 2016 than 2020 for a number of reasons. I agree with David Jolly on both points that it's not enough to just not endorse Trump. You have to also say Biden is the choice if you care about democracy.
That is insane.
But also the number of folks in the electorate who don't like both major party nominees has fluctuated quite a bit. In 2016, it was something like 17%, and Trump won them by a large margin. In 2020, they were only 3% of the electorate and Biden won them. Now, this year, they're about 19, 20% of the electorate. And for a lot of folks who see these videos, if you do not say, like that man said, no, I'm going to vote for Biden, I think you're kind of encouraging people who don't like either Biden or Trump to stay home because you're not sort of offering them an alternative choice. You're just sort of saying, you voted for Trump in the past. He's not good enough this time. Therefore, good luck.
And Lisa, that's the key part of this. Offering that ramp, as David noted, that giving that permission structure to say, okay, and it's hard for some Republicans. I mean, they're really baked into the infrastructure of the GOP. So to then make that leap, you need that line of encouragement that says it's okay, because you're not necessarily just voting for the man, you're voting for the country, and that's the important part of this.
Now, the reason they're doing this sort of outreach, and you see it even with the Biden administration. The reason they're sort of doing this, and you see it with the Biden administration's PR arm, which is CNN and MSNBC, is that they're pivoting to the center. They're pivoting to trying to speak to the supposed, this imaginary Nikki Haley supporter, the white soccer mom that lives in the suburbs, that's moderate. That's sort of who they're pivoting, and that's what this segment sort of speaks to. They're trying to convince more Republicans because I think they see the writing on the wall as far as Michigan. They see the writing on the wall as far as the uncommitted vote and the abandoned Biden movement. They see the writing on the wall with the support in the poll after poll. That's not getting better for Biden when it comes to Black people under 39 in particular, when it comes to young people under 35 in particular, when it comes to the Arab and Muslim population and those in solidarity with them in Michigan. So they have to pivot to try to get a different voter. And that's what we're seeing in the coverage and the PR arm of the establishment, which is cable news, and on the liberal side, it's CNN and MSNBC. Let's listen to a little more, and then we got an article to kind of read over.
Well, and it was notable to me. We've pulled apart a lot of the former president's speech from last night, but there was one piece of sound, I'm not going to play it, I'm going to paraphrase it for you, that I also thought was worth discussing, which is, as we all know, you have President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris out there saying that, they worry about the future of American democracy and American elections should Donald Trump be reelected. He's now out there trying to make the same argument to his base, saying, I don't think you're going to have another election in this country if we don't win this election. I don't think you're going to have another election, or certainly not an election that's meaningful. I mean, David Jolly, I would talk about the gall, but.
Yeah, so, and this is what the Trump administration has been doing for the last several months. They're taking the democracy talking points that the liberal establishment has been using against him, and they're using them now. Like, he's using that, I don't think there's going to be more elections, democracy is going to be ending. They're using that. And I remember Rep. Stefanik, I forget her name, Elise Stefanik, went on Meet the Press, and she said something in the realm of this also, where she said, I feel like democracy is going to end if we elect Joe Biden because of this, and this. So they're starting to flip the democracy argument, like, oh, you said it's going to end. No, it's going to end if you. And you're seeing it reflect in some of the speeches that Trump has been saying, and that's what she's pointing out here. Let's continue to listen.
It's the least of what we've seen.
Yeah, and let's identify how perverse that is, because he never says why. Why would there not be a next election, right? When Democrats and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris say there might not be another election, it's because democracy itself is on the ballot, and Donald Trump will wreck our constitutional democracy. Why is it the end of the republic if Donald Trump loses? Is it because his voters refuse to accept the election? Is it because he unleashes violence in the street? Why Donald Trump is it the end of our democracy is a very pressing question.
Right. Finish the ellipse.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you complete that thought? Though, as you might have noticed in the speech, he had a lot of trouble completing thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. You know, for someone, Michael Steele, who likes to talk about other people's mental acuity, he couldn't seem to get there.
This so blatantly obvious attempt to laugh about Donald Trump's mental acuity as if that's the same thing as what's happening to Joe Biden. Like this, it is so transparently bad. Like, you guys aren't that good of actors, and it's so transparently bad. It's a difference between mental acuity, your mental acuity being here. Let's say both of them are here. It's difference being your mentally acuity being here because you're just stupid. And it's a difference between your mentally being acuity being here because of a cognitive decline. But they're trying to make it seem like it's the same thing when everybody and their mama can see the difference in Joe Biden.
There himself.
The man can't string together a complete sentence.
Here we go.
I mean, I've had more than one person say that to me over the last few months, that at the end of the day, everyone's focused on Joe Biden speech pattern. He has a stutter, folks.
Oh, here we go.
He has a stutter that he tries to control. What's Donald Trump's excuse? Oh, my God.
So the Joe Biden has a stutter has made an appearance again. Oh, God. He went there. Joe Biden has a stutter. Okay. Let's continue.
Because I'm telling you, he can't do it. And so it really kind of raises a number of flags for me, David, around this idea of how people perceive these two individuals, right? At the end of the day, you're looking at Donald Trump and Joe Biden as men who are going to run the country for the next 4 years. Right. And within that body of voters, you're finding this phenomenon that has been tagged or labeled double haters, people who, you know, a pox on both their houses. How does that dynamic change? Because Alexei raised the question.
So double haters, this is a term you're going to be hearing a lot during this election. Double haters are people who reluctantly picked someone, even though they hate both choices or both corporate choices, both mainstream choices, equally or slightly equally. They hate both choices. So those people are called double haters. And I believe, they might clarify me, and maybe I'm misquoting this, but I believe from my memory, Donald Trump won the double hater. No, I'm sorry. Joe Biden won the double hater. I'm sorry. Let me back up. Donald Trump won the double hater when it was him against Hillary Clinton. He won the double hater category. He had a higher percentage of the people who said, I hate both candidates equally. He ended up getting a higher percentage of that. In 2020, Joe Biden ended up getting a higher percentage of that. They're afraid, because I think he's polling higher right now. That's Donald Trump, that is. They're afraid he's going to get that group. And I believe the guy in the bottom left-hand corner, the former Republican rep, is going to mention that. I believe in this segment. It might have been another segment, but I believe. So let's listen.
The question of people possibly staying home. Is that what we look at with these double haters? Is there an opportunity to break into that a little bit and to get them to hate one a little less than the other? What are we doing here?
Yeah, there is, and that's a big concern. And first, let's take the first part of your question, which is I think voters wrongly conflate age and fitness, right? Yes. They're both old. Joe Biden's old. But where has his age been a limitation? As James said about a previous administration to voters complaining, what are you so upset about, the peace or the prosperity? Because where has his age limited either one? It hasn't. With Donald Trump, it's fitness. Yes, he's as old as Joe Biden, but
it hasn't limited him in campaigning. It hasn't limited him in speaking. Is it going to limit him in a debate? Is he going to debate Donald Trump? Is it limiting him in his choices that he's making in what he's selecting to do? For example, with supporting Israel. So for this guy to pretend, but this, again, this is the desperation that I was telling you about. Obviously, most of this shit that they're saying about Joe Biden and the dynamics of the race is just a make-believe story. But this is what they have to push as they're looking at the polls, and he's still losing. The polls have not gotten better.
But the question is around fitness. So somehow now voters, we have these double haters, and where they move could actually decide the election.
Yeah,
I'm going to use this opportunity now to take a gratuitous swipe, if I could, at no labels, because their choice will be either Biden or Trump, or stay home, or look at a third party. And what no labels has constructed could ultimately swing it to Donald Trump for a couple reasons. In the most likely scenario, they withhold votes in key electoral college states that then swing that state or secure that state for Donald Trump. If they are ambitious enough and successful enough to actually win a state, to win electoral votes and throw this thing into the House, Donald Trump becomes president, and the likely flipped Republican Senate picks a Republican vice president. That's where these double haters, if they get entertained by a no labels movement, gets very dangerous for Joe Biden.
We're going to talk about no labels a little bit later in the show, but I do want to make sure that we talk, Alexi, about this Axios focus group. These were Wisconsin swing voters who were, among other things, blaming the GOP for the failed border bill. With those interviews, so these are Trump voters from 2016 who flipped to Biden in 2020. And the good news for Democrats here, Lexi, is that it seems
we're not gonna watch that. It's such a bogus focus group. It's like it's so bogus. Let's pull up the accompanying article that they mention in that segment, and we're gonna pull up that accompanying article now, and it's called the Double Hater article. I guess we can call it the double. Is this the right one? Yeah, Double Hater article right here. It's from Politico. Where is it? Here we go. Here we go. Double haters might decide the 2024 election. So let's see. Maybe I'll read a little bit of it, and then I have another article here. Let's read a little bit of this. If President Joe Biden wants to squeeze out a polling deficit, he'll need to secure the votes of some people who don't like him very much. The good news is many of these voters don't like former President Donald Trump either. They might be the most important group in the 2024 election. Call them the double haters. I'm a double hater, but I'm not voting for either one of them. Voting third party. I'm the double hater that's voting third party. I hope that all of you are a double hater that's voting third party. Should get that on the shirt. Double haters. Let's read. Double haters. Voters who are unsatisfied with both Trump and Biden make up roughly 1/5 of the electorate. Recent polls from the Marquette Law School and some other polling entities all reported the same number, 19%. That's a huge chunk in a race that's likely to be tight. Demographically, the group resembles the general electorate, although it leans slightly younger and more Hispanic. Double hater. Slightly younger and more Hispanic. There are also an equal number of Democrats and Republicans in this double hater group. These double haters have been an important group for multiple election cycles. This year, with both candidates' favorability ratings plummeting, the number of voters who dislike both major party candidates may surpass the previous high watermark in 2016. This is what I was mentioning earlier with Hillary Clinton. Let's continue. Back then, Trump won a bigger share of the double haters than Hillary Clinton, outperforming her by 17 percentage points among the group that made up 18% of the electorate. So again, 18% of the electorate, I think I'm saying that right. When Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were running against each other, Trump won by 17 percentage points. Biden turned the tables in 2020 and won the group by 15 percentage points. Granted, they only made up 3% of the electorate then. So you see, it was only 3%. Yeah, it was smaller. Look how much smaller. That's something like 5 times smaller. 18% versus, that is, yeah, 18% versus 3%. So if the percentage goes higher, will that lean to Donald Trump? According to the exit poll. And he continues to have a 45% to 33% advantage. That is Trump. This year, however, a third-party candidate seems to be a far more popular option, at least for now. Most importantly, double haters are a volatile group of people willing to change their minds up until the last minute, posters say. In an era of starch party loyalty, they are outliers who are capable of switching up their allegiance with every new cycle. Such volatility can present a golden opportunity and also a real challenge. Most double haters who say they'll vote third party actually have little knowledge of who those third party candidates are. According to the Democratic poster, that's according to a Democratic poster, of course. Celinda Lake, I think that's how you say her name. And more information in the coming months could very much change their mind. Trump runs the risk of reminding voters of why many of them voted to toss him out in 2020 as more information trickles out about the trials. Quote, their dislike of Trump seems more durable, more intense, more non-negotiable, whereas Biden seems a little milder. Perhaps he has more ability to turn it around, Lake said. Quote, so I think it represents an opportunity. This is spin. This is called spin. In this election, Biden and Trump aren't each other's biggest rival with this group. It's the couch. So you hate both. So it's not like one is tempting you for the other. You hate both. So that couch is looking pretty good. Why the fuck am I going to get up and go vote when I hate both of these motherfuckers right here? I'm supposed to stand in line for an hour for fucking Trump or Biden? This is what Joe Biden is trying to do. He's trying to play both sides here. And it's not working out well for him in the polls. people aren't fooled. It turns out you just can't say a bunch of shit, and then the people who know the most about this issue on Palestine and Israel, which I would say the people who are marching in the streets, you can't fool them with this empty rhetoric. You can't fool them. So let's talk about the absurdity of Biden's Gaza policy. And this is the headline here: the tragic absurdity of Biden's Gaza policy. The U.S. government is making elaborate plans to ameliorate a humanitarian catastrophe that would not exist without its own bombs. Since Israel's campaign of death began, President Joe Biden has perfected the art of cognitive dissonance, planting story after story about his ever-increasing frustrations with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, while continuing to send Israel the bombs it is using against the people of Gaza. It's the handing bullets and weapons to the murderer while at the same time trying to console the people that the murderer is killing and bombing their area. That's essentially what this administration is trying to do, because they have a large constituency of people that are now disaffected and that right now saying they're not going to vote for him. These are the number one reasons that's contributing to his low approval rating, to him losing in battleground states, and to him losing in the must-win state of Michigan. Democrat cannot win without winning Michigan, period. Let's continue with the article. But the past 7 days have taken this absurdity to new levels. That's because this was the week when we saw both Biden's most dramatic attempts to appear to be radically shifting his approach and the most dramatic evidence of just how deeply the United States is helping to perpetuate this war. First, the attempts to telegraph that change is happening. Biden used his State of the Union address to announce that the United States would be building a pier off of Gaza's coast so that it would deliver aid to millions of people who are either being massacred or left to starve to death due to Israel's increasing or unceasing bombardment and total siege of the region. He was then filmed telling Senator Michael Bennet that he was going to have a come to Jesus moment with Netanyahu, though he immediately undercut the seemingly accidental nature of the broadcast by adding, quote, "I'm on a hot mic here. Good," end quote. The fakest hot mic moment ever known to man. On Saturday, Biden went further, telling MSNBC's Jonathan Capehart that Netanyahu was hurting Israel more than helping Israel. We covered that interview. And that an Israeli invasion of the southern Gaza city of Rafah, where 1.4 million Palestinians were trapped, would be a red line. All of this was enough to prompt some of the White House more sycophantic chronologicers, such as Axios reporter Barak Ravid, to proclaim that Biden was breaking with Netanyahu. This is the shift. And some of this I'm going to go more in depth in it in the next sort of broad segment of scapegoats, because you hear it in this article too, where they're already trying to shift blame and make this a Netanyahu thing. The genocide is only because of Netanyahu and not the overall project, the colonial project. But let's continue. And it's true that these moves could seem like an encouraging signal about his willingness to put some kind of pressure on Israel. But wait, what's that sound? That would be the other shoe dropping. The most important news about the American handling of the war in the past week could be found not in any of the aforementioned highly choreographed moments, but in a pair of reports on Tuesday in the Washington Post and the Washington Journal, or I'm sorry, the Wall Street Journal, in which the outlets revealed that not only has the United States been transferring vast amounts of weapons to Israel, but it has been doing so in a way deliberately designed to evade public scrutiny. That's when he was shipping those weapons, and as long as it's under a certain amount, they don't have to tell anybody. So they did it 100 times purposely. Because why wouldn't you just put all of that together and have one shipment, 2 shipments? But you having to keep them under a certain level so you don't have to tell anybody, and you just do a bunch of them, over 100 of those. But they also talk about it here. According to the report, the U.S. has approved more than 100 arms sales to Israel since October 7th, constituting what the journal called tens of thousands of weapons. But the Biden administration has revealed only 2 of those deals to Congress. The rest have been masked by one of the oldest, shadiest financial tricks. So let's recap. Biden publicly lamenting the scale of the death in Gaza, going after Netanyahu. He's doing that on one end. And pledging to build a maritime aid corridor to get aid to Israel. So he's helping them, right? But Netanyahu's ability to carry out the level of carnage, he couldn't do what he's doing and impose such an inhumane siege is dependent on the continued flow of weapons to Israel from the government headed by Biden. But they want to tell you this is Netanyahu's fault. They want to make you believe that Netanyahu's doing something they don't want them to do, that they disagree with. Oh, let's continue. The U.S. government is now making elaborate plans to ameliorate a humanitarian catastrophe that would not exist without its own bombs. When you add the fact that Biden's government is not only sending Israel weapons, but is so eager to do so that it is purposely skirting congressional oversight and public accountability. It all gets even more ludicrous. We're no longer in a simple, quote, this makes no sense situation. Instead, we've arrived at a Twilight Zone, quote, if I try to rationalize this, it will tear a hole in the fabric of space and time situation. It's as if you kept secretly handing an arsonist gasoline and matches, then showed up 5 minutes later with the firefighters read out a statement about how unconscionable arson is and announced that you were taking major steps to help the survivors. That is a fantastic analogy from this article, but that's essentially, not in a nutshell, because that was not a long read, but a decent read, what the Biden administration is doing. So this pivot to scapegoat Netanyahu is just part of this messaging strategy to trick people. That's all our government does. They change. They're going to keep the policy because the policy is irrelevant to what the peasants want to do. We just change our messaging around the same strategy that we're doing. That's what the Biden administration is doing.